Episode 3 of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is a little under a week away, and following on from an episode that bridged the gap between Sir Duncan the Tall and Egg, and it bringing to light how they're not actually all that different at their core, especially with the way that they're perceived by other people. Along with that, there were hints and clues about Egg's true identity and what it actually means to be a knight, and that it's more than about just carrying a sword and a shield. With Sir Dunk also wanting to have a greater legacy than Sir Alan of Pennytree, the trailer for the next episode showed the very moment that's going to start the avalanche of exactly how that's going to happen. So with that, I wanted to break down the trailer and also give my theories and predictions on what I think could happen next. So let's get into it. Here is A Night of the Seven Kingdoms Episode 3 trailer explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. So the trailer for the next episode opened up with the kind of music that's matched the theme of the entire season so far. Light-hearted and completely different to the tone that we've come to expect with Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And also it saw the togetherness of Sir Duncan and Egg. I'm not even joking, that breakfast sandwich that they made looked absolutely delicious too. Imagine dipping a bit of bread in that massive yolk. Egg said to Sir Dunk, "Can I stay as your squire after the tournament?" in a soft-hearted way, showing that whatever life that Egg had before, the life that we know he was reminded of when he saw the Targaryen banners in the second episode because of that look of fear in his eyes, the one that he now had in being Sir Dunk's squire was what he preferred. This was intercut with Egg trying to move the horse of Sir Dunk and him failing to do so. To me, this connects back to a difference in Sir Dunk and how he's able to get on well with horses because the soft-hearted nature that he has is what they feel from him. He's never really gotten on that well with humans because they've always been cruel to him, other than Sir Arlen, but the horses are the creatures that he's just gotten on with fine. I think this is something that Sir Dunk will most likely teach Egg, especially if he wants to stay on as his squire and ultimately feels like he's being ostracized by the world. Sir Dunk responded to Egg's question and said the squire must be strong, and then made a joke about how Egg can't even drink a pint of ale, and Egg responded and made a joke back in saying that it's disgusting. Now, I really like these interactions and type of dialogue because they're light-hearted and silly, but they do a good job at building the relationship and the connection between the pair of them. It's done a great job at laying down the foundation and establishing a soft-hearted tone, so when the tone of the show does inevitably shift, maybe after the halfway point, the unrecognizable nature of what we've come to see and gotten used to could feel like a distant memory, and I hope it does, as this is only 6 episodes and the episodes are quite short, so a drastic tonal shift is probably what they need. This conversation was taking place at the jousting event in Ashford the day after we'd left them in episode 2. When the title of the episode appeared, that was also when we got a tonal shift in the trailer and the more cheery, relaxing music switched and a score that had tension embedded within the heart of it started playing instead, showing that something bad was on the horizon. Sir Dunk was asked, "Have you chosen your opponent yet?" And Sir Dunk said, "I suppose Aerion and I are quite equally matched." Now, I feel like this has to be a joke of some kind. I don't think Sir Dunk would be serious about that. Sir Dunk is so much taller, bigger, and not of a noble background, so I don't see where he'd be getting the similarities from. However, equally matched might just simply mean that they are experienced in riding horses, as that's all Dunk has ever done throughout his life. This was met with Aerion is cruel, the Targaryens are tyrants who burned our lands, enslaved our people, and are incestuous aliens. So it showed that Sir Dunk and Aerion aren't necessarily the same people. Aerion Targaryen is the one that ties into all of these characteristics most as well. He's an entitled individual, which is what we saw when we first met him, and he wanted Dunk to tend to his horse despite not being in that position, and the way that he treats Tanselle is something that shows how he wields his power and status like a weapon in his sheath, ready to be drawn. As this was being spoken, there were a number of different shots that we had. The first was of Aerion lifting his helmet whilst at the tourney as Sir Dunk looked on, so after watching him, that might be where he got the impression that their ability was the same. It also looked like there was a bonfire of some kind that Sir Dunk was caught up in. Plus, there was also a shot of Tanselle when the line "enslaved our people" was spoken. As we saw in the Weeks Ahead trailer, it seems like she becomes a victim of Aerion, which almost triggers the situation that Sir Dunk ends up in the second half of the story, so that's why that was selected as such an important shot. Sir Dunk intimidates the dragon, and it doesn't go down well because, as I said earlier, Aerion being made to feel weak by somebody that he looks down on is something that he just can't allow to happen. After this, there was then a quick succession of shots that occurred. It seems like during the tourney it's going to kick off, and that's probably where the shift in the show's tone is going to change. As from there, it'll lead to Aerion waving his authority around and assaulting Tanselle, which is most likely going to be taking place during this shot here where she's performing on stage with the puppets as a dragon is firing its breath towards her as she mimics a knight. There was also a shot of Egg running through a misty field with a lance, showing that maybe he gets separated from Dunk when it all kicks off and people storm onto the field. There was one of Lyonel Baratheon acting like his drunken self again. This is something that also connects into the wider theme of the show of how a man can be a fool or a knight, and in this world where there seems to be a lot of knights, Lyonel is definitely the fool. After this, there was a scene of Aerion who appeared to have a bloody mouth, and this is where the events of Sir Dunk standing up for Tanselle will happen and the Trial of Seven will be triggered. This will mark a true change in direction for the show, and the happy-go-lucky, almost fable-esque brotherly part of it will draw to a close for a more familiar, darker tone that we're used to in Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. Aerion said, "The dragon never loses," and throughout history, especially around that period of time, that was always the case. Even though the Targaryen family was seen to be in decline and the family all having relatively different approaches, fire would always win. With the trailer then cutting to a scene of Egg sitting in a tree as the sound of a blade slashing was used as the audible transition. That again was a moment that was hinting at the fate of Egg and the clues towards his identity. Sir Dunk then said to Egg, "Fetch my armor," and Egg responded with the question of, "Now?" as if he was confused by the fact that he wanted it at that moment. The pause, silence, and the sound of the fly buzzing allowed the trailer to conclude with the tone that it opened in and reminded us of the feeling that we've had when watching the show. Then with that, the trailer came to a close. What it feels like this next episode and the remainder of the show is going to be about is good versus evil and standing up for what you believe is right even though you know it might come with consequences. With Sir Dunk standing up for Tanselle, somebody that he doesn't even truly know but he feels a connection with, the heart of a knight is what's going to cut through, and it'll show that, like what Maekar said to Dunk in the second episode of the show, it takes more than a sword and a shield. Yeah, Maekar, we know, sort your bloody son out. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is truly standing out at the moment, and as I said in my breakdown of the second episode, I didn't expect it to be as strong as what it was, and I feel like the tonality of it compared to Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon is allowing it to have its own identity in what would be a very cluttered universe. The chemistry of the two main actors is so strong, and with the Trial of Seven looking like it's on the horizon, I feel like the threat on Dunk's life will only make the brotherly feeling cut through even more. So, until next week, all we can do is theorize. So, there you have it, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms Episode 3 Trailer Explained. If you want to see more videos on A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, then check the playlist below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. What do you reckon's going to happen in the third episode of the show? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.